We often hear people talk about listening to the inner voice. The question comes then, what is this inner voice that they are claiming that they are following? This inner voice, also known as the conscience, it is a voice that should be guiding us from the innermost, the most pure aspect of our consciousness. It should be coming from the self, that which is of the highest purity. Patanjali tells us that the whole issue we have is that we are caught up in avidya. And he says, avidya is the mistaking of the impure to be the pure, impermanent to be permanent, and the non-self to be the self. So we need to be careful. Are we listening to the voice of the self, or are we merely following that which is noise? Noise is that which is coming from the non-self. It is that disturbance, that movement away from ease, that movement away from saucha, that movement away from that which is pure. That is noise. Avidya, the root of the kleshas, is ignorance. And the moment we are ignorant of our own inner nature, our own real nature, at that point, the asmita, that sense of differentiation, that sense of duality, you are different than me, I am a separate being, I am the most important person. This is the asmita that comes in due to avidya. And the moment the asmita comes in, the ego comes in, that self of me, mine, I, me only, me first. The moment it comes in, I like something or I dislike something, raga and dvesha. That which pulls me towards it, raga, and that which is pushing me away from it, dvesha. Both the dvandvas start to have that effect. So the root is avidya, ignorance, magnified, the noise starts as avidya, magnified as asmita, becomes deafening by the time it becomes raga and dvesha, the two opposites, and then of course sustained, magnified, amplified beyond the highest level that makes us deaf. You know, a certain amount of sound can make us deaf. Well, abhinivesha, that desire to survive at any cost, somehow I have to survive, that makes us deaf to the inner voice. So the noise, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha and abhinivesha, this noise makes us deaf to our own inner voice, the voice that comes from the self. That self that is beyond the individuality. That self that is beyond any differentiation. That self which doesn't have likes and dislikes. Now that inner voice comes from a very special place. And another way to understand that is that the subconscious, unconscious, chitta activities, they have a lot of noise. At the level of manas, it starts to, become a bit more adjustable, adaptable. And then it is at the level of the buddhi. The buddhi, which is the intellect, it is the capacity we have to really differentiate noise and voice. So whether it's going to be the noise, which is due to the kleshas and our ignorance that supports them, avidya, or whether it's going to be the voice. And this is why, as Maharishi Patanjali tells us, the whole purpose of yoga is to get rid of these ashuddhi, these impurities, so that the jnana deepti, the inner illumination occurs due to wisdom that comes in the buddhi, the vijnanamaya and anandamaya kosha. And at that level, we attain the highest level of viveka khyati. That viveka khyati, that discernment that enables us to know whether it is the voice or whether it is the noise. Without that ability to differentiate noise from the voice, we will end up thinking that we are following our conscience, our inner voice, that intuition, and yet we will be making mistakes. This is again related to the Ajna chakra, which is beyond the subhuman levels. All the lower chakras deal with the subhuman levels. It is at the Ajna that we now start to have choice. We start to have viveka, and also we have the capacity for vairagya, that metacognition, that ability to have objectivity towards our own subjective experiences, that ability to again differentiate noise and voice. Viveka and vairagya are essential components for this. Let's continue to meditate, contemplate, ruminate, and think about this difference between the noise and the voice. And every time you hear what you think is that inner voice, ask yourself a question. Is it really the inner voice of the self, or is it merely the noise of the kleshas?